Welcome. Thank you for that introduction. Normally the session's titled The Cutting Edge, and over the years, I've taught here a couple of years, and they used to have little bios in the book about what the session was, and so The Cutting Edge had some definition. Last year they changed it where there's no definitions, and it was just The Cutting Edge, and everybody was confused. They didn't know what the session was about, and so thus the discrepancy between the title in the book and the title up here. So The Cutting Edge is more clever when it comes to editing, right? But, all right. Let's see. Directing and editing your own projects will teach you so much about filmmaking. You will absolutely vaporize other filmmakers who don't understand editing, guaranteed. And I don't remember who said this, and I apologize, because that's a great quote. I'm a big fan of folks who even want to be directors, editing their own projects, especially as they're starting, and even as they're more experienced, doing sometimes even their assembly cut. There's just so much about the decisions you make as a director on set, under the pressures of money and time. Learning how pieces go together in the edit is extremely valuable the next time you're on set, and learning what risk was worth it, what risk was not, when to push, when to grab the extra bit that you need. Knowing how to edit is everything. I know every discipline in filmmaking is like, ours is the most important. I would say for directors, sure, know a lot about the other departments, but editing is so crucial. That's how the story comes together. For example, Ron Howard said that editing is when you come to terms with the possibility of your story. Everything else is just a hope and belief. It's often said it's the final draft of the script. You have what you have, and now this movie is going to be whatever you can make it with what you have. And script writing's free. It's hopes and dreams, hopes and beliefs at that point. But editing is where it all starts to come together. To start, I've got several different lists here. So before we really dive into the editing, know that editing begins during pre-production. Plan what to shoot, because if it's not shot, it's really hard to fix that in the edit. If you're a director or working with directors, encourage them to storyboard, plan your scene transitions, and consider the edit when you're having to cut scenes or simplify your shot lists, and keep track of those things. Okay, we're going to get into more of the actual editing process here in a second, but on the front end, I've been a one-man band for a lot of years. I've done some shooting, done some editing, small projects, commercials, promotionals. It's invariable that there'll be points where we're wearing multiple hats, and just be organized if you have to do any directing, and consider the edit. Not just for the sake of your editor, for your own sake, because it's the project you're trying to shepherd. There's the point here, sorry. And then learn the layout of your program, your software. This isn't going to talk about specific software. This is not a how to use whatever type of thing. A lot of these principles are very universal, so learn the layout of your program. When I started, I was on Final Cut, back when that was a cool program to use, before it was X. I started my business in 2005, so I've been doing this for more than 20 years. And they actually printed manuals at the time, and they were this big, and I actually read through the entire Final Cut 2, I think it was at the time. Made my way through the entire manual over a couple of years learning how to do it. So learn the layout of your software. There's always new things to learn. Fortunately now there are PDFs and searchable and YouTube's around and friends, people can answer questions. There's always 5 ways to do the same kind of thing somehow. So learn the layout of your software. It will help you be an efficient editor. And efficiency and time is a key objective. It's not the only objective, but it is a key objective as an editor. To that end, Isaac Botkin said, learning to edit is like learning to write. Once you know how to write, it's pretty easy to use any word processor to craft a story or book. It's the technique of visual storytelling that needs to be learned to master the craft of editing, and cheaper programs may be fine for that. Whether you could use Windows Movie Maker. I don't know if anybody's using that anymore now with iPhones and the free apps, and I can't even keep up with Instagram cut apps and things that you can use. I don't care what you're using. These principles are kind of universal across all of that. At the end of the day, I would caveat Isaac and say when you're going to write, though, things like Final Draft, there are softwares that are intended and very hefty for what you're trying to do. And so there are softwares that are a little more advanced and comprehensive, but they're not always necessary. All right, one more quote and we're going to start diving in. Okay, if you can master the use of the simple cut, you can master the art of editing. Editing is one of these weird things where it's not all that complicated and yet is extremely complicated like at the same time. So it's not like you need After Effects or anything to do like crazy edits, although you can. But just simple cuts and knowing where to put those is everything, okay? Okay, editing determines. Why is editing important? Because it's the timing of moments, it's the pacing of your story, and the feel of your story. And these are all kind of synonymous. They're all kind of a little bit different ways of saying the same thing. But they kind of can also be different at moments. Pacing the story and the feel of the story. How do you get there? All right, so let's dive into the editing workflow. Let me get a real quick, how many are using DaVinci Resolve? We had talked about this a little bit. Oh, see? Every year, the number of hands go up, I'm telling you, okay? Adobe Premiere? Yep. Anybody using Final Cut? What, sometimes? What? It is fascinating. I won't spend too, it's fascinating over the years to see how the numbers and how the timidity or the confidence of the hand raises changes with the software over time. Anybody on Avid? No? Okay. Anybody using something I didn't mention? Yes? What are you using? See? I knew it. It's coming around. Anybody else? After Effects to edit? Okay. Okay, look, when I first started, before I had editing software, I was editing in PowerPoint. I would have to time the video, the slide length to the length of my clip, and then I didn't have any way to export because it was, I guess I'm old now, and I would have to video my screen as it played. So look, I got out of that as fast as I could. Oh, look at you laughing at me back there. Okay. CapCut's even better than that now, so, you know. Okay. All right, so number one, importing and organizing. I'm going to go back through this whole list one at a time, okay? Drag and drop, 3 editing essentials, creating the cut, transitions, and making the movie. This is my overview of the workflow, okay? And we're going to go back through each one of these. So let's start with importing and organizing. And some of these have underlines. This is from a course that we have with our online courses, Motion University, promo film course, and they usually have handouts and all this other stuff for the coursework. These are not necessary underlines. You're not missing handouts. This is just the slides I have from those courses, okay? All right, so if you want to write them down, feel free, please. Okay, so organizing, be organized. I am a firstborn, very attention to detail, OCD personality type, and I think that serves editors well to, if you're not that way, learn to be that way, because I can't tell you how many people I've tried to help organize their desktops or find files, and there were 400 things. It was just a mess, and I'm like, no wonder you can't find anything, and they're not getting their work done because they can't find what they need. So this is just a suggestion. There are a variety of ways to organize things, but organize so you know where they are. I like to put numbers so it'll organize, alphabetically and not off of the other stuff, so I can put them in the order I want. And then inside of that, there'll be subfolders. So inside of music, there'll be temp or licensed or composed. Camera subfolders look like this. So this says performance because this is like the name of the project. So you would name this something else, or oftentimes this will be the date that you filmed it on. And then this will be a folder of date. And then the technical way for cameras is roll A, roll B. That's more of a feature film thing. You could do card 1, card 2, however you want to organize it, but keep them organized and be relentless about offloading your stuff. Sound. This is from like a live edit example of something I did. So we were running a switcher even at the time for this. So it was an edit. So I have a standard folder that I just keep that I name temp. And I just duplicate that and rename them as possible. So I don't have to sit there and recreate all of these things because time saved is good efficiency. And then I'll just go and delete out stuff I don't need as necessary. Okay? That was just another camera folder that wasn't irrelevant. Okay, so inside of the software, and this is DaVinci Resolve, I keep similar types of folders so that I can easily reference what I need on both sides of things. So files, this is more like project files, so I don't really have that one reflected in the project. These may be contracts and documents and research and other stuff that doesn't need to be in the edit. Motion graphics, GFX. Music. These are under assets. Sequences, also called timelines, and this is a standard. I have an editing template in DaVinci, and I just duplicate that project, rename it as needed, and these are all created for me, so I don't have to go recolor them, I don't have to read them, because time saved is an efficient editor. And so inside here, sometimes I do episodes, I'll delete that out if I'm doing a movie or something else, or retype it to scenes, and we'll do, you can change it around as you need to. Sound, video, will go in these folders, day 1, 2, 3, 4, and they would have subfolders if they had sound or anything, beyond that. Okay, so that's importing, organizing, know where your stuff is. Then we have drag and drop. There's different ways and different approaches to editing. I'm not knocking any of the other ones. This is just how I edit. I am, and no one's in Avid. Avid's the one I hear most people have a difference with. So that's the other thing with Premiere and DaVinci is sometimes people like to do a lot more from thumbnails in the media pool folder, source folder kind of things. I'm not as good at that. So what I do is I make timelines, sequences. I'll use that term interchangeably. And I drag all the stuff per day, per scene, whatever it is, into timelines, organize them so I can quickly go through my timelines and reference and find what I want. And I can scrub it very quickly and get through things very quickly. I find that to be a more efficient use for me. Okay, I've got a couple of examples. Oftentimes, if I have multiple things from a day, or if I'm doing something promotional or documentary, I will group them using timeline markers. These are different ways to organize. If I want to put multiple things all in one timeline, I decided that's what's efficient. So this is like all the picnic footage. This is the people we interviewed, their B-roll. This is someone else that we interviewed. So this is a B-roll folder, B-roll version 1. So all the B-roll from the project went in here. It's like a 3.5-minute promo, right? So it's a short project. This is somebody else interviews all their B-roll. So all their B-roll's here, and I can quickly go through and I go, oh, this is Campbell. I need to go find another clip for them to cover their interview. I know exactly where to find it very, very quickly. So it's an easy, organized way for this project. Okay, this example is a little out of order, but we'll do it this way. As I go through the timeline, as I watch through, if there's things I like, I bump it to the second track so I can quickly, I'm a very visual learner, and I can quickly see what I like. Sometimes, if I've used it, I'll bump it to track 3 so I can keep track of what I've used, what I haven't, what's surrounding. I quickly lose that one if I'm in a hurry and I get busy, as editors tend, and I stop doing things to track 3. And now they have duplicate frames as a feature in a lot of software, so you can quickly see if you put in something you've already had before, and that kind of solved some of the need to do that. Okay, but I bump things visually so I can see what I like. I don't bother color coding that. Now I do color code, like for a documentary or a promo, I will use color coding. These examples will be from DaVinci and from Premiere, so they all can do the same thing. I like to color code interviews, in this case. Scenes might be it for a feature or something like that. So I can quickly see if I have a good balance of interspersing the voices. If you guys are in an editing class, I'm assuming some of that is self-explanatory. If you've ever done it where it's all blue and you're just like wondering where in the world the one guy is, these things are just like, why haven't I done this the whole time? So I like to use color codes, and I'll change that per project as needed. But in this case, it's a very helpful way to visually see things quickly. Here's one from a feature, same thing, where I've got something from a scene. This is, I don't know, scene 30 or whatever it is. And so they have all these different takes and all these different cameras, and you could get into more color coding for angles and whatever you want to do. But again, I'm bumping things to the second track. Even in a scene and takes, a lot of times that'll just be off of, if you're a big enough project, have script notes, circle takes, prints, whatever that is that the director said, I like that one, use that one. I go through and make sure to raise those up and mark those, know what those are. Okay, once I have all my timelines put in there and organized, and I have all my stuff that I can scrub through, duplicate. Duplicate your sequences. Don't keep editing in the same one you've been working in. You duplicate it, and then you iterate the numbers, version 1, version 2, version 3. I don't do this for the B-roll and stuff as much unless it's like a feature-length documentary and you're trying to trim down B-roll or you've got to do something like that. But a lot of times for the edit, it'll be version 1. And then once you kind of get to a place, you're like, I want to change some things around, but I don't want to forget what I had. Duplicate it. Change the thing. Number 2, there's no reason why you can't. Number 3, you can always go back to it. Especially if you're going to do things for a client. And the client says, hey, I want whatever. That's definitely a duplicate, make changes. You can date these if you want to. This is not the right or wrong way to label these. I'm just saying at a minimum, know what your versions are and keep it simple so you can find them and keep track. For example, this first cut was an hour and 18 minutes off of this interview. Or is that the project I had? Yeah, that was an interview. Okay. So that was an hour and 18. I went through. That was version 1. Version 2, I trimmed it down by half. It's now 36 minutes. And then I duplicated the sequence and I trimmed it down again and I got it down to 15 minutes. And so anytime I'm just doing this culling process, it just helps my brain process, if nothing else. And often at the end of the sequence, I just throw things down here, at the end, and you leave wide enough gap that you just know that that's kind of your bone pile and that you're losing, and as you iterate, you can delete them, because you can always go back. And at the end of the day, you can always go back to the original, because you've got it in a timeline, and you didn't lose it, and you don't have to go back to your folders, right? Okay. Trim down even further. Then I keep things organized by track layer. Again, you can change this as you need per project, but for example, I have on track 1, we have video. Track 2 would be the second camera. Track 3 starts to be B-roll. And then track 3 and 4 would be B-roll, because I like, sometimes you stack things on top or you got dissolves or whatever you got to do. And then we're going to start having graphics or titles, put those on a separate layer. Eventually, hopefully you get into projects where they need deliverables with no text. You got to turn these things off or find them, translations, whatever. Put those on a layer so you can turn them off. Efficiency, right? And this, whatever your version of this is, track, graphics, titles, name titles, whatever it would be. Okay, same for audio. The first track would be, dialogue from the interviews or your cameras, whatever it is, that all translates. And then I do sound effects all the way through here, because those are all kinds of layered and back and forth trying to do sound design work. And then I put music at the bottom. And that may be a couple of tracks as well. We've had like 4 tracks deep of just music, just trying to keep track of what's fading in and out and how we're doing things. I try to keep it simplified to like 2 tracks. This is even simpler for this promo. Any questions up to this point? Is this old hat? Everybody do all this already? Is this new? New, some, a little bit? Okay, all right, okay, it helps? All right, great. So that's dragging and dropping as we get our stuff in there. 3 editing essentials. Now we're actually editing. Organizing is the boring part until you're trying to find something. Okay, cuts, dissolves, fades. These are your 3 go-tos. For example, cuts tell the audience that things are connected in space and time, happening right after the other. There's no lapse in time, no gaps in a scene. We're not talking about between scenes, but in a scene, this is just saying they're talking to each other, we expect this. This seems straightforward and obvious, but it's worth explaining from this point. Okay, a dissolve is different. It tells the audience, some of these have sound, some don't. The info may be related, but it's not directly connected. Short passive time, location changes. It says other stuff happened, but it wasn't important, so we took it out. Montages are an easy use of this. Audience thinks montage, okay? Then there's fade to black. Use these sparingly because they show passage of time and usually mean the subjects are related. This is the opening to Woodlawn. So they're using dissolves. It's a montage. You open, fade to blacks. It's this kind of feel. It was funny one time, one of my kids, I forget which one, they were probably 3 or 4. We were watching a movie. There's a fade to black in the middle, and it was long enough that they said, "Oh, all done." And I said, you don't have to teach people. Somehow you don't have to teach them. Fade to black means all done. Don't just put those haphazardly in your movie. Know what you're doing and do that on purpose. And fortunately, I've seen Christian films getting better at this. So good job. Keep that in mind, though, as you go forward. Okay, so those are cuts, dissolves, and fades. Use them with intentionality. creating the cut. Back to the main list. Creating the cut. This one we're going to spend more time on. Creating the cut. One description of this has been in the blink of an eye, because you don't naturally have cuts. Everything is one continuous stream for our eyeballs and our brain, except you blink. And if you look from one side of the room to the other, you subconsciously blink. God has designed it. We do not watch handy-cam shaky footage all the time in our life because that makes us dizzy and nauseated. We blink. Those are cuts. And we can use this to help when we're stuck in editing, to go, wow, okay, let's look for blinks. For example, and I've done a lot of promo stuff, so we're going to kind of, in documentary, so we're going to do things with interviews. These apply across the board, even with scenes and narrative and actors. But for example, we'll see here, as we're editing, we scrub through at the end of her sentence, people blink because it indicates the brain is having a change of thought. So once they finish the sentence, they will most often blink. I don't like seeing blinks, and so I will find right where that is. I will trim right on the other side of it, so the edit now becomes the blink point. And you can cut to B-roll, you can cut to another clip, you can cut to the close-up angle, whatever you want to do. But I strongly dislike blinks in interviews and with actors at the end of a scene, because it's saying they're thinking about something else now, and it's a subconscious thing to the audience. Another place this is helpful is in the pacing of a scene. So now we're going to go to narrative, and why would you use this intentionally? When things are happening quickly, it's almost a little bit of an opposite, where when things happen quickly, your brain actually slows down and you gather more information. But to exemplify that in editing, you have to have more cuts so that you can see more things and keep up with how our brains process lots of information. When things are slower, anyway. So for film, watch, there's two different scenes, same length, and there's a different number of shots, but you can see, and it's not a lot of different, the difference is not a lot, but you can see how it changes editing. Now you have to shoot that, right? But in editing, you get to pick and choose and finesse that. There's 11 shots in that sequence. This one, they find the kid a pace in the feel of that scene. So the blink of an eye can help in what you're trying to create in the feel you're trying to create for an audience. These are a bunch of just different techniques in creating the cut. They don't necessarily follow a sequential order. This is just a list that you can use as a tool. L-cut and J-cut. L-cut is where the audio continues after the visual cut has been made. It makes the shape of an L. A J-cut is the inverse, where audio will start before you see what it connects to in the visual. L-cut, J-cut. Make sense? These are just the technicals. A split edit in which the end point of a clip is adjusted to overlap the preceding clip. That's okay. The visuals are a lot easier to see. You hear something. Let me show you a couple of examples. Here's one where this is called like a block edit. Chop, 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 chop. This is how you edit it normally when you're first going through everything. That's great. There's a story of a guy who was trying to hire editors, and he would just hand him a pile of footage and say, you have 2 hours, I'll be back. And when he came back, if it looked like this, they didn't get the job. If it looked like this, they got the job. He didn't want to have to explain this to everybody and teach everybody how this worked. But this is going to be more of a flow. You're going to hear things continue. So this might be more of a dialogue scene, right? You might see somebody's reaction. You still hear the other person talking. You hear something. You hear them still talking. It cuts back to them. And back and forth. So it just flows in interweaves. Now, you may or may not want to do this for the purpose of your scene, and that's a decision you have to make. But as a standard, learning how to adjust in and out points of audio help with the flow. It's a good example of using both those L and J cuts. Here's one that Kendrick's used, where they're cutting to this, for a scene transition.
I can be there today.
Hear the guy on the phone. Then we see the guy on the phone.
Thank you very much. I'll be there as soon as I can.
You sit in the edit, and the guys are sitting at the table. You see this guy, and you go, we need more of a space to get a sunrise shot. It's a new day. We're trying to help an audience. And you go, then we see the guy. Okay, just blend it together, smooth a little bit. It's great. Okay, editor, you can do these things. It helps. One of the things you want to look out for is jump cuts. Avoid the jump. This would be a little more applicable when you're dealing with documentary or interview style things. This type of edit causes the subject of the shots to appear to jump position in a discontinuous way. For this reason, jump cuts are considered a violation of classical continuity editing. Now, it can be used for comedic effect, like in this example, where it's a locked off shot and the guy is just like jumping all around. This is rarely the case where you're dealing with. So just be aware of this. In interviews, this is easy to do. Usually you're covered up with B-roll or some other things, but handy dandy software. In DaVinci, they have one of these in Premiere as well. I think the one in DaVinci works better. I've had better success unless they've updated Premiere, but I do everything in DaVinci, so I haven't checked recently. But they have a feature called Smooth Cut, and they've just updated it more recently to have a speed warp feature. And if you are unaware of this, I just included this new, and you're welcome. Because it helps smooth. It doesn't always work. If they're really far apart and their head is here and their hand is there, that's a little too far and it's too much for the computer to try to create frames in between to make it look smooth. But if it's anywhere close, I've been really impressed with how well this has worked. You do have to like render it out and check it and watch it and make sure it doesn't like make their eye flutter weird or something strange. But this has been very helpful in getting around the need to always cover your interview cuts. And makes it feel continuous. It is not a violation of classical continuity editing. Okay, be aware of the jump cuts. That's distracting to an audience. One other thing that's helpful is catch the consonant. So other than like the blink of an eye, sometimes in interviews, same with narrative, I keep qualifying both of those, but I don't think there's audio to this one, but you can see it in the waveform. There's a bump here in this audio at the end, and there's also a blink. So it's at the end of a sentence, and let's say she says today. It's a hard consonant sound, today. And so we really appreciate doing that today. Whatever, I'm making it. So right on today, I used that as a cut to B-roll, also to get away from that blink, because she didn't wait to the end of her sentence to blink. She blinked on the last word. Now what do I do? So I'll use consonants then to try to, and sometimes I back it up even further to use that. It helps it be more invisible to an audience. They just don't notice it as much when you're using the consonants. Here's an example that with audio on the word, at the end of a sentence, I come back to him on the word deeper.
I discovered that I could do more than I thought I could push harder than I thought I could, and that I could go deeper in my relationship with Christ than I ever had before.
It builds a certain confidence.
So I used it as a comeback instead of a move on. Okay? So that's a helpful technique sometimes to employ, is finding those consonants. Reaction shots, we kind of covered this briefly. These are very, very helpful in getting around. So here's an example from like National Treasure, where I was noticing like these two shots are only interrupted by this one cutaway. So this could have been take one, this could have been take two, or any variation thereof, and it would jump if they didn't cut away to this thing. Now, it could be for story reasons and a whole lot of reasons, but I'm just saying this is the only shot between these two shots were exactly the same. So they use this to come back to here to get the take they wanted, to get away from the jump cut. This is why as editors or as directors, it's important to understand editing and what the problems you may face or what you forgot to get on the day because the sun was going down and you're running out of time and you were coming up against dinner or whatever it was. You know what pieces you're going to need in the edit to get around and make the scene that you need. Unless you're absolutely confident it's a oneer and you have no need to cut away to anything else, you better know that for a fact. Here's an example of a cutaway where anything, like this could have been shot in a different location, this could have been shot at a different time. That actor may not have been in the room, unless they show you a wide, right? Then you kind of know the guy was there. There's over the shoulder. That, likely they shot it all at the same time. That's more efficient for filming. But cutting away to those kind of things or shooting them later, even if you need to do pickups, is very helpful. Here's a more extreme example of whatever they look at off screen, the audience believes that's what they see, unless you're doing like night and day or something ridiculous. But
listen to me. That storm turned on us, and it's coming right at you from the south.
this is an old Billy Graham film, The Climb, which I highly recommend. It's really good. So they're mountain climbing, and they turn around. There's a storm coming in, and what do they see? There's no way there's like clouds coming over the mountain, but they need it. There it is. They're not even in the the foreground at all. They're like, we have only so much time to get back down, so here it comes. Here's an example from a short film I did with my kids.
Hey boys, we're here to solve a case of a missing boot.
And in this
think
case,
we should go fishing.
none of them are in the room when
But I saw the
rest of them
kids.
are not in the room when the one kid's
Last time I
talking.
went fishing, I caught a boot.
So they're just looking at marks.
It's true.
There's nobody there. It's just one kid at a time, because trying to get all three of them to sit in the room and all as kids without actor training, okay, you understand. And so he's just looking at an empty chair over here. This kid was just looking to two different empty chairs. And even when he hands him the paper, we had it like a box that we set the paper on for him to reach off screen and pull the paper into view, because this kid is not handing him the paper, trying to coordinate all of that. So as an editor, I finally realized, I bet I can fool an audience and make them think they're all here by reaction shots, insert cuts, little things like this. Again, it helps to know these different techniques. Go with the flow. Here's a classic. Who knows the story of the what do you call this? Oh, the trailer. The Jurassic Park, but it's the trailer. Nobody? No, this? Okay, all right. These are one of those like film trivia things that I'm excited to tell you. It'll ruin the scene forever. If you cut on the flow of motion, it goes into the door, comes into the trailer, and because the motion is continuous, you never even notice that the door opens the wrong way. They are hinged on the opposite sides from the exterior to the interior. One, nobody cares. It's a dinosaur movie. Two, the motion hides edits. And so use that to your advantage for continuity purposes and getting around continuity. I mean, you can have a door that doesn't even open with the handle on the correct side and they won't notice. Well, I mean, somebody did, obviously. We know now, but even Spielberg does this, right? All right, it's okay. Another one this one's a little simpler and something you'll run into a little more common, standing and sitting from chair positions. So as he stands up right there, he's still in the movement as they cut to the close-up. And it helps with coffee cups up and down, all kinds of things for continuity. If you're looking to fix some of these things sometimes, these are common bugs that you're trying to solve as an editor and go, okay, what's wrong with it? Look to how to adjust that better inside the movement and the flow of that motion, okay? And then cut, cut, cut. Especially if you're trying to do comedy, get in, get out. You think it's funny, no one else does, and comedy is funnier the faster you move on from it. I don't know why. I haven't studied the science on that one. I'm sure somebody's written several books and done a lecture and a TED Talk. But get in, get out, and move on. It's funnier that way. Blooper reels or even, I've seen some that are like 7 minutes, and anytime I click on a blooper reel and you're like 7 minutes, I'm like, it's not going to be funny. 3 minutes, better. Leave them wanting more. Don't ruin the moment. Once you have a scene how you like it, try trimming it down. Just try. Duplicate version. Try saying, what lines can we lose here? Do we have to have them say all of this? Sometimes they call it the shoe leather in a narrative scene, and then come into the scene. You may want to do that for the purpose of the story if you need to, but most of the time you don't even do that. You wouldn't even have to have them drive up in a truck, necessarily. You could just have them open the door. How much can you cut out? How can we just keep the story moving? Where is the audience? What are they thinking? What information have they assumed? How do we keep it moving forward? The lady's checking out the meat section and says, what's the director's cut? He said, none of the fat or gristle's been taken out. Here's an interesting one that I thought was very daring, and I don't even know if I would have tried. I mean, if a director asked me to, I would have, but...
I'm Denise. I work with him.
But it worked.
Hi. I'm Sam. Oh, I know who you are. Tell me all about you. Come on in.
Open the door, and
Make yourself at
she walks through a secondary doorway. And I never thought about it until I was watching it for editing purposes, and I was like, they went with the flow. And she walked through the door, she went through a second doorway, and your brain is just like, yeah, they're in the house. And you're in the story, and they're meeting characters, you just don't care. You don't care about all this other fiddling and whatever it was. Maybe it was necessary, maybe something happened, maybe they forgot, and they didn't come through the door on the take. They thought they had started, and there was an accident, and now they're inside of the room. And well, to fix it, if they didn't shoot it properly, I don't have any reason to know that's what happened. Go with the flow. Take one of these other techniques and find ways to help fix this in the edit. Here's a really fun one where Spielberg was a producer on, this is one of the Jurassic World movies, maybe in the first one. I found this on one of the bonus features. So they put together the deleted scene. So I put it back together so it doesn't flow quite right, all right? I just patched it in there. So I'm going to show you the original version, and then there's a conversation that the director and Spielberg had that I'll show you. So this guy looks down, giant dinosaur print, beautiful forest, you hear sounds, kids wandering through the forest, jungle, whatever.
This is what it would have been like.
What?
The dinosaurs never went extinct. People just wandering around, scared all the time.
People wouldn't be here if they never went extinct.
And they walk up and they find this hat that has a huge gash in it. So Spielberg said, out of this sequence, you don't need this bit. It's like 64 seconds or 34 seconds, something really short. It's not like the runtime isn't going to change. No one's going to like decide to go see the movie or not. Like it's these kind of things that directors go, oh, it doesn't really matter. Spielberg goes, you don't need this. And the director, Colin Trevorrow, says, but we won't know how they got there. In between the boys, he says, in between the boys are traveling together. You don't need this. They say it's 15 to 20 seconds long. The director says, no. We don't know how they got there. Spielberg replied to him, what happened to my, logic is the enemy of storytelling. There we go. All right, sorry, I took out some of all right, my bad. I tried to fix it. All right, he says, no, I thought that was wrong. Logic is crucial to storytelling. And Spielberg said, no, logic is the enemy of storytelling. You can go to A to C without necessarily needing B. The audience will fill in the gaps. Sorry, I messed up I had this thing right on the slides. I messed it up a little bit. I was trying to simplify it. All right. And it actually creates, so you try things that directors want to do, try things that your producers try to say. You never know when they turn out to be better, because I actually think this is a stronger visual going from the dinosaur print straight to a hat that's been destroyed, right? So all of a sudden you have a happy accident and you go, oh, wow, the story's even better now for 20 seconds, and you didn't fight them, and you weren't mean to them. You built a good relationship. You were working on client projects. Listen to them. Listen to their ideas and try it. Here's the original version, or the actual version. And they used music and other things to help lead into that and so forth. Okay. Here's an example from Washington's Armor, which is like an early American Revolution film that I worked on and did the editing for. We had this problem where, as we're introducing George Washington, crucial characters, hero of the story, they weren't really following and they weren't empathizing. Is empathy the right word? They didn't like him fast enough in the movie. We're like, well, it's expensive to go back and shoot stuff, so we're like, how could we try this? One thing in story is audiences will think things about your character based on the way other characters in the movie respond to them. So what we did, so I'll show you this version. He comes into this scene, he's trying to talk to this lady that he grew up with, known forever.
Madam? Madam Fairfax?
Then she turns, then she responds to him. So we decided, let's see her response to him before we see him, and see if that changes how an audience feels about the scene. And this now has sound design. This is a better, finished version of the movie.
Madam Fairfax?
So he's off screen now. We see her turn. We also trimmed down the madam.
I do not, as I've insisted on numerous occasions, reply to madame or any other form of mummery in your presence. To you, my dear boy, I am simply Sally.
And she smiles, and then we have his response. People felt it worked better. So you can just cutting things out, trimming things down, moving things around helps. All right. Match the music. This is how much time on a pie chart that you spend editing, and then how much you spend looking for music if you're not on a commission where they are composing it. And then the notes come in, you got to change it, and there you go again. This one's pretty straightforward. You can see there's even other features now that will actually mark the beats in your music for you, and you can adjust your edits to match and line up with them. If you ever have an edit that's not working and they don't know why, this is a good technique. Go make sure by frame, your edits are landing on some of these downbeats and some of these shifted. They don't always have to, but a lot of times just fixing that just is a subconscious thing of rhythm in an audience's head that solves problems. That things that weren't working suddenly feel like they are working. Demo reels are a good reason for this, promos, shorter things. But even you see on features, they use music to land on that, boom. Then you saw the hat, all music, downbeats, all matters. Okay. So match the music and work with composers on that if you need to. Time tweaking techniques. These are like slow motion or speeding things up. Rarely do you speed things up. Usually you're slowing things down. These are used for impact and very specific uses. Slow motion can be very powerful and subtly hidden to the viewer when the timing is just right. Let me show you, for sake of time, I'll show you this one. So this is everything's normal speed. This also features one of my kids. He's dumping there he is. This was made a while back. And then as it falls off, we shot that in a little bit slow-mo. Everything else is normal speed. Just a little bit, just very brief, but it just added just a little bit of an edge of an impact because also it slid off too fast and you wouldn't see what was going on. Just did it a little bit slow. Sometimes you can do that in post. There's a lot of features now, especially in DaVinci, to slow it down. You can use optical flow and some of these other things that really help build in between frames to make that not look all chunky and jerky and weird frame rate stuff by slowing things down. Editor's job. This is why I say learn the layout of your software. Know some of these techniques when you need them so that you can help directors accomplish their vision. And then refine the line. This is sometimes going to come down to an editor where anybody who's not familiar with the 180 line concept? Anybody not familiar? Most people? It's okay to say you're not familiar. I understand. Okay. The 180 is when people are looking at each other. You got to stay on one side of the line or they look the wrong way. So in this case, I was doing a trailer for this little kid's film, and they filmed it the wrong way. So they both look like they're looking the same direction, which is strange. And because there's no words or any definable features that were really important, I could just flip this, and now they're having the proper conversation, but I just did it in editing, and it worked. Right? It doesn't always work, but that time it did. Cutting outside of context can save a scene. Let me show you a couple of examples where, kind of what we've talked about a couple of times, but here's a fun one where, okay, this is the images version. She's looking out, this little girl is looking out these little curtains. This is a biblical era film. She's looking at these curtains to her room, and she's listening to these people. You can see the curtain over here. This is her room, and she's listening to these characters have a conversation. The problem was, these characters come in, sit down on this bench, and have a conversation, and we never see her again until the very end of the scene. She's just laying in bed all of a sudden, which could work, right? There's no right or wrong to this. The director didn't like it, and he was like, now we just assume she was there for the whole conversation, and it was like a very personal conversation. The kid was kind of in trouble, and they're like, so she's like listening the whole time, and like, I don't know. But then she's like back, and they thought it was confusing. And you're like, well, we never had the shot of her closing the curtain going to bed. So this is where we get creative and use a couple different tools. I found an earlier scene in the movie where she opened the curtain. So I took that shot, watching people in the same little atrium area. So we took the shot, did the flip, so she's looking the correct direction back towards the door, and then played it in reverse so that instead of opening the curtain, she closes the curtain. And now, as they're having this conversation, she closes the curtain, and we go back to their conversation. At the end of the scene, she's back laying in bed, and we get it. So this is the fun part of editing, when you can come up with things like this. All these different tools come into play, and you can help a director, one, save money on the budget. You don't have to go back and find a way to shoot it or something else, or just have a bad-looking scene. Let's see here. For the sake of time, let's go. Well, I got to show you this one. This is one where I messed up. This is from my kid's short film. And there was a key piece where they're supposed to tell this character why they're there. They walk in, they meet this guy, and they're supposed to say, we're looking for our brother's boot, but they don't ever, in the speed of shooting it that day, I forgot to get the line. We thought we marked it off. Anyway, I'm like, oh, great. Now they just walk up and talk to this guy, and he just starts helping them find this boot, and it was a little weird. So I had him recorded in a voiceover and then I just used other angles. So it's not set on
Are
screen.
you a bad guy? No, he's the sheriff. He captured bad guys and puts him in jail. We're trying to find our brother's rain boot. We promise we're not causing trouble.
So you say you're looking for a boot?
Yeah, that was his line. He would say,
Let's look around here and see if we...
So you say you're looking for a boot, but he never told them they were looking for a boot. It could have worked. You could be trimming things down. You could come with a shorter version of the scene. I get it. But in this case, I was the director and I wanted the line. So we just recorded it off and just used an over the shoulder so you can't see their mouths moving, and voila. Editing tricks, and you help save a scene, okay? All right, let's talk a little bit about transitions. Yeah, scene transitions. Respect common concepts, the cuts and fades. For example, we already covered
Yes,
that one.
sir.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is a fade to black that I thought worked for the story. You wouldn't have to do it this way. Now they've moved to a funeral. This is, if you're going to use it, this was a good use. You should not be fading back up and people still be in the hospital in the same places they were when you faded out because you just had a bad way to get from one thing to the next. Okay, this would, if you're going to use it, I don't love it. You still could have cross-faded, or you could do straight cuts. You could do audio, J cut. There's no right or wrong. But I'm like, all right, I give it to them. And, here's one where they didn't do a fade to black. It's just a straight cut. She's watching some guys. It's like it's a tense moment. Oh man, I love a good cut to black. I'm telling you, there's just something to it as an editor. The music and the rant, there's emotion to it. I love a good, strong, straight cut to black. And they could have faded it out. I've seen plenty of movies. And they came right back in. I can't remember. I was busy, excited about that. I thought they maybe even cut back in. They didn't even fade back in. So if you can get away with that, it's nice. Let me go down to this example. Here's one where they didn't do anything. This is from, I'll think of it in a minute. Unconditional thinking. Sound design.
Everyone!
They did a flashback with sound design.
Bradford. His grandmother is the new janitor.
I was impressed by that. Usually they'll fade to black, flash to white even sometimes, or it can be acceptable for massive time changes going back. Sound design as an edit and then to trigger, man, I was like that director edit, he actually directed and edited his own movie. Props to that guy. He did a good job. So respect the common concepts. Use those tools. Avoid silly swipes. You are not Star Wars, okay? Unless you're doing a Star Wars spoof or something silly, these just draw attention to themselves. They're like giant exclamation points. They are not good punctuation when it comes to classical storytelling, okay? Here's one for Mac and PC. No sound needed for this one. He was like, some things never change was his line. And they use this little like ripple dissolve thing to indicate, all right, so it worked. So avoid silly swipes. Creative cuts are things that usually have to be planned. They're very rarely do you find happy accidents out of this. These guys are fighting and getting in all kinds of trouble. It looks like it goes through the ceiling or the floor, it goes to black, comes up through a desk, the camera motion continues, and we're in detention. The ideas connect in the story, but you use something creative to get from one place to the next. Don't have to do it this way, but it worked. Here's one facing the Giants. This one you do have to plan. Coach is frustrated. They're losing a game. He takes his hat. As he throws it, it turns into a clipboard inside the locker room. Great connection and storytelling. Got to plan it. That's a director thing. As an editor, your timing on that's got to work. It usually works better from wides to close-ups. If you are shooting, you have to go from close-up to wide, wide to close-up. Usually it's better wide to close-up because your brain is expecting continuation. You're expecting the hat on the ground, and instead, in the same sizing and framing of that shot, it was the clipboard instead. All right. Let me give you a couple of bonus tips to help expedite the edit. Use external hard drives. Don't just use your own computer and your machine. It's bogging down the system, trying to read media and run your software. External hard drives are so cheap these days. You can do solid state. If you're going to do spinning disk, they do still exist. 7200 RPM, not the 5400 RPM. If you want to get technical and you're having an external hard drive and you're still having trouble playing your stuff back, get the box, get the instructions thing on it, find out if it's the 5400 RPM or the 7200. You can do cloud-based stuff now. I don't do that much in cloud. even some of the cloud features we use in DaVinci, we still have actual hard drives with proxies and whatnot on either side with remote editors. And solid state is okay, but it's really expensive to get huge sizes for stuff, so spinning disks are still, you can get RAID configurations, we can talk more nerd details. Have a backup, have more than one copy, especially if you're shooting a movie or something you're getting paid for. You need to have this not just on your camera cards, putting on a hard drive, at least 2 places. 2 hard drives are even better. I was on a film set one time where they plugged in, they had 3 copies, which is really good. Plugged in a drive, it fried the motherboard and like wiped the drive, and they were like, oh, well, glad we have a copy of a backup. Plugged the second one in, fried the motherboard, and they were like, no one touches the hard drives. We are going to the store to get more versions. We are going to plug a different computer. And so things happen. And so have backups. As an editor, that's part of your job to make sure you're not losing your client's footage. USB, Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's usually better, faster. You can daisy chain your drives together. USB is a little more limited. Not always the case, but I like Thunderbolt drives better. Turn on autosave on your software. If you're using Premiere, this is my one dunk on Premiere, is no one needs to see this and then lose a day or hours. The autosave is not always real great on Premiere. DaVinci is much better at this. It still has an autosave feature, which I do go turn on. The autosave time it takes is much less. So turn on autosave. It does help and does save your bacon if you got to go back and find it. I've only had one instance where I've had to go back into DaVinci and find a backup file from the software because it crashed it so hard it didn't know where I was when I reopened it. Once out of, 5 years I've been using it. It does crash. All software does crash. But I found DaVinci to be better at remembering where I was when I come back to it. Okay. Second bonus tip, evaluate the edit. Especially if you're doing bigger projects, take time to get screenings. Even if you're doing shorter projects, even for clients, get screenings, get critique, learn to listen to people's input on your projects. It's hard, it's painful. I still don't like it, and it still hurts every single time, because usually they find a way somehow to pick the thing that's your very favorite. Every time. I had a trailer for that kids movie, and I had a bunch of little like pieced together jokes I made that weren't actual jokes in the movie, but there were jokes in the movie, but I was trying to, so the trailer, you don't want to give them away. So I'd made up kind of a new one, and I was excited about this, something I'd done, and somebody looked at it, and they're like, I think that one's not working, or it's just too long, and it's slowing it down. I'm like, you don't understand the genius of what I put together. Like, I love this. It's hilarious. And they're just like, yeah. And they weren't even related to the project, just somebody outside, and I said, yeah, it's all right, fine. So I made a version without it. You know what? It's what the client likes, what they went with, and it was better in the long run. So learn to listen to the critique and then make revisions. Don't be defensive. If somebody says something you don't like, don't say, well, I did it because of the reason of. Most of the time, the first thing they give you, this is even like relationship advice, the first thing they give you is not the real issue. Sometimes they're throwing something out there to see how you handle critique. And if you say, okay, thank you, I'll think about that. What else do you think? Is it this, or do you think it's that? Like, explore it. Dig into their thought process, and they go, well, I'm actually wondering if, and you're like, there it is. Now you better get a pen out. What's the next one? That's where something, and their idea of how to fix it may not be the actual solution, but understanding the problem they're feeling is really important as an editor. Then say, okay, this is what they think the problem is. How can we then, like the Washington's Armor example, what do we need to do to try to fix this issue? And it could have been 3 scenes earlier that something was misunderstood. Take time to explore those things. That's extremely valuable. Art, as a creative, your goal is not to make things that you are in love with. Make things an audience is in love with. They're the judge, not you. It's not even, you have to serve a director, but it's really not about you either. Make something an audience wants to see. Otherwise, it's just for you. And that's a small audience. Okay. And then as you make the movie, go to export, put it in the folder on your drive where it's supposed to go, and do not name it your cool movie version 2.5 with fixes, version 4 with my initials, and this one had no titles. Okay. Do the proper titling of your file is needed. Delete the ones that you no longer need. Keep things clean and efficient, and serve well as an editor. Okay, we have just a couple minutes left. Any questions? Yes? Right. Sure. Okay, so just to repeat it for the audio, the point was, no, you're good. The point was, like in Saving Private Ryan, the jump technique in editing served well for the effect they were going for in that scene. Correct. Sure. Things like that can work well when you know what you're trying to do. And when it's putting you inside the head of a character, yes. Most of the time, just be aware of that and do it with intention. Yeah, great point. Question, yes, in the back.
How often do you find yourself doing masking, and also about how many clips do you find to be normal with per takes? How many takes?
What was the first one? The first one was on matching? Masking. Oh, I see, sure. I mean, so the first question was, how often as an editor do you find yourself masking? I try to give that to visual effects as fast as possible and as much as possible. I'm not in After Effects. I know enough to mess with templates, but I don't. I know enough that I can do it if I can, but most of the time to do it well, send it to VFX and get those guys to do it. The second question was what's kind of a normal average of takes for a scene? That's as varied as the directors are themselves. I mean, it's... there's no 3, 4 is kind of like a decent, should be average. It's not uncommon to get 7 or 8. I've been in situations where we got up to 13 to 18, which is why I say as directors you should learn editing to know what you need, and when you have what you need to put together a scene. It served me well in a situation where I was helping a young director who was new, who didn't have a lot of editing experience. We were shooting a very complicated intro to a movie, and it's not his job entirely to keep track of everything. He was just like, do we have all the pieces? And as an editor, like I do a lot of editing, it was easier for me to keep track and go, and I was helping shoot it, and I was just like, yep. I oftentimes on set, I would stand there and I go, you come back to that, yeah, we have that. Yeah, you have it, yeah, it's there. You know, and he's just like, you're sure? And I'm like, I'm sure. So yeah, it was good. So, but again, people who don't do a lot of editing, I've seen that be harmful on set and sometimes prolonging takes. If it's necessary, right, but usually within 4 to 5 takes, and if you're doing a couple angles, you have something to put something together. It may not be what you think you want, but sometimes you need to move on and make your day and get your other scenes, and don't compromise the rest of your film or project trying to overdo something that in editing you can make work. Yeah. Other questions? Oh, I'm at 12:30, so we'll wrap it at that then. If you have other questions, I'll be around, happy to talk, chat. I'm here to help, so thank you guys for coming.